good, so I think we're pretty much good to go.
All right. I have the recording started,
Sweet.
and let me turn
Let's
this
get it.
on. Okay. Uh, yeah, like whenever you want to go, you can introduce it, and we can hop right into it.
All right. What's up, everybody? It's Gavin here with NBA Real Talk. I'm here with Mr. Super Mario Hoops 24, one of my favorite basketball YouTubers here on the internet. And we're going to talk about an interesting subject today. We're going to talk about three NBA players, three NBA players who really, really need to ditch their social media accounts. Number one on this list, I'm going with Kevin Durant. Now, I'm going with Kevin Durant because KD is such a great basketball player. He's such a kind of wonderful guy overall. And I think if you just take his career and look at it just the way it is, just the way it's played out, but just take away the social media, I think he has a better case to look like a better player. But
Yeah.
I think thanks to his social media habits, which to his credit, he says, gives him fuel and he's got the time. And a lot of these guys like to sort of shut their haters down. But I think without social media, his legacy would look a lot cleaner. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think personally, like with Durant, it's a little bit, and this is why some people label him maybe as like too emotional or something, like just because of the way he reacts like to certain tweets. It's like, I mean, most people would recognize him as probably a top 15, top 20 at least like player ever. So it's
Yep.
like at that point, like, you know, it's like why do you need to, I guess, let the haters get to you? Like for the last 10 plus years, he's been like maybe one of the three most important figures in the game. Like probably him, LeBron, and Steph. Like, and you know what I mean. So like, it just seemed like it seems kind of irrelevant to attack those people, but like at the same time, like he's been caught like with the burner accounts and like
Uh,
basically comparing himself sometimes to like a superiority, and it seems like he's really like let the news like around the NBA media circle get to him about like,
yeah.
oh, you can't win without a super team, like you had to join the Warriors and you haven't done anything since winning wise. And I think he still hasn't recovered from that. Like if he like we said, if he just gets rid of his social media account, and because he puts in a lot of hard work, we all know that, but I think maybe there's part of him that still is thinking about like, why I gotta do this, or else like what are they gonna say about me? Like don't even care about what they say about you. And the confusing thing I would say is that like he puts on a persona that like he doesn't care about like what people say about him, but then like he still does do it like on social media, and that's like the confusing thing to me. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he needs to chill it out on the Twitter fingers maybe and just like play ball.
Yeah. I think if I just would try to trace it back, I don't know if you remember, it was when he was still in OKC. They started this ad campaign, I think, with Nike, where they were like, Kevin Durant's not nice.
Mm.
Do you remember something like that? It was basically like he was perceived as this nice guy, and then they were trying to be like, Kevin Durant, he's not a nice guy. He's serious. And I remember from those years onward, it's like when you could tell he had such a embittered sort of battle mentality with the media. They could be asking about Kobe Bryant back when Kobe was going to retire, and Kevin Durant would be like, "Y'all been treating him like shh," like sort of like goes right into battle mode every time he's engaged with the media, and I think that's contributed too much to his desire to be on social media. And when he's on there, it seems like all he's doing is detracting. It doesn't seem like it adds anything
Yeah.
unless it's adding something for him. And I think he looks like such an insecure little man, kind of for a 7 foot tall guy who's so dominant. Who really you can't really pick a single problem in his game. You couldn't even really uh, even think of a time where he looked like he was lacking confidence or anything. And it just seems like there's this little thing in the back of his mind that he's got to keep telling everybody how it's like he's the classic example of like, I don't give a what you think, but I got to keep telling you I really don't give a whatever you think, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And he would just be so much more of who he really is without it. Does that make sense? He's like, I'm
Yeah.
Kevin. All I care about is basketball. Don't ask me to care about anything else. And it's like that's who we want you to be, KD. But it kind of seems like you're stuck. You're stuck in this land of things that don't really exist, which is social media. You know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Yeah.
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 I,
I don't know.
yeah.
I just think like he the like I no I feel what you mean, and I mean we're gonna get into other people later on down the line that maybe also get into this, but like what I will say is like at least for Durant, like there's just no need like to get into that. Like if he wants to, talk about himself or like respond to something about like player rankings, that's totally fine. But like when it's people in his replies that are talking about like you could only win like this or like you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, and then he's like quote tweeting that. That's where it's probably like okay, like maybe you don't need to go that far and cross that line, you
Yeah.
know?
He needs to get more MJ on it. Like, take it personal, but like, take it personally personal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You don't let the world know how personal you're taking it. Okay, so we're pretty much in lockstep on that. We'll move on to number two. The jersey I'm wearing,
He came prepared today.
very obvious. So this is the only modern NBA player's jersey I own. You know, being a huge Iverson fan, etc. You can imagine why I'm such a fan of his. But Ja Morant. Now, Ja Morant is a very obvious choice for this, but I would say he's and for more than just the obvious reasons, he's the poster child for it because Ja Morant is getting in trouble these days for things that aren't actually new. You know,
Mm.
these are mistakes that unfortunately young men make, but he's not hurting anybody, too much. Or there's not, they put it this way, none of these problems are that big, but the ones that are the biggest, he's broadcasting to the world. And that's the problem. So many of my favorite players, I remember all the time in the 90s and 2000s, is like, oh, guy got pulled over with like a joint under the seat and an unregistered gun. This is nothing new, but the problem is that he's trying to broadcast this to the entire world, and it goes without saying that everyone's like, dude, what are you doing? Like you're gonna be the first guy to make it, out the NBA into, back to the neighborhood kind of thing, where it's like it's not really what he's about or where he's from, and
Mm.
you as a younger gentleman yourself, you're probably a bit more in touch with his generation. You know what I mean? Obviously, none of this stuff is lost on me. I still have, but like the need to sort of broadcast everything the way he does. Um, I think even when you get the problematic stuff under control, sometimes that's something that I kind of worry about with some of these younger athletes. It's like they're trying to show something that they really aren't. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think at least like from my perspective, I think like Josh probably like a year old, 1 year older than me or something like that. But yeah. So I guess like just for me, like it just doesn't make sense because most people when they work so hard to get to like this point, it's like you kind of want to stay at this point, So like it just doesn't add up. Like I mean. Like some
That's
people,
a good
as
point.
people say, like the
Uh,
math just doesn't add up. Like it's like what is the purpose in going back to square one and maybe even like further down than maybe he ever was, we don't even know. But like I will say too, like with Ja, like even though like you could probably make an argument that based on like with what proof we have, like that maybe he's just done nothing wrong at all. But what I will
yeah,
say though is that like when you already hear about like what he did like in that Memphis mall and then like about like with the kid and like how he like punched him and stuff, like that's all hearsay, like it's news that's reported, but at the
yeah,
same time it's like you probably shouldn't be waving a gun on an Instagram live and then with your friend you also have one which I believe now he's saying is like a toy gun, which I don't know if it was or not, but like I'm gonna probably bet it wasn't, just that they're trying to save face with that.
yeah.
But it's it's just a bad look. Like, and why even put yourself in that position? And also, like, what he should be asking that is like, even though like he's the only person to blame, like you said, he's a grown person. Like he has to make his own decisions. So and same thing with his family needs to like kind of like take accountability in that sense. Like they need to make sure they're instilling like the right, uh, I guess like morals or lessons like that he can follow. But also like he needs to surround his circle with people that are looking out for his best interest too. Um, and
Which is
like,
part of growing up. To be fair, like,
yeah,
there's some people, they might be your friends, they might be loyal, they might not actually be out, to drag you down or anything. But sometimes those decisions come up in life where it's like, hey, I gotta distance myself from certain situations.
Mm.
He as far as his friends and everyone else goes, I mean, this expands a bit beyond the social media, but you know, I remember this originally was addressed as like a mental health issue, kind of when it
Mm.
first happened, and that was my first sign when I saw that happening. I was like, what the heck is going on? I was like, everyone's trying to protect this kid, but they're not doing him any. Like when the first gun incident in the strip club, and like, oh, Jaws, the way everyone taught, it was like he got a terminal diagnosis.
Mm.
Like instead of being like, oh, Jaw screwed up, he's got to know better. It was like, I hope Jaw just gets the help he needs. And everyone was speaking so somberly about him. For a guy who, for lack of more specific terms, was just an idiot who flashed a gun in a strip club. You know what I mean? That's the type of
Yeah.
stuff where you go, hey, grow up. Be act like a professional. Don't be doing that stupid stuff. Leave it in the past. But instead, it got massaged so much, almost ridiculously so. Like, hey, it's okay to just say the guy's in trouble and to say he'll move past it, kind of thing. And I can't help but think that even as a grown man who's responsible for his own actions, the social media has really shown us that no one in his life, right up to his teammates, it seems, and his coach, is really holding him that accountable for the way he's been behaving. And that, I think, as much as, like I said, he's a grown man, makes his own decisions. Well, it seems like his family around him is causing some of these problems. It sounds like the thing at the mall with the Foot Locker stuff. From what details we have, it's like his mom
Mm-hmm.
call. What kind of a mom calls her superstar basketball, about on the verge of being a billionaire type son? Oh, I don't like the way this Foot Locker employee's been treating me or something.
And his
You know,
dad is more like like people have even said like his dad has been more like his best friend, which I
yeah.
mean, that's cool to an extent, but like he really also needs to be the parent, like
It's cool when you're a teenager.
yeah.
Once he's grown up and in the league, dad, you got to be dad. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mm.
And I say the same thing about their coach. I think their coach is an awesome coach. Is it Jenkins?
Yeah, Taylor Jenkins.
Taylor Jenkins. He is a phenomenal coach, but he's pretty young, and you see the way they behave around each other. And I think, not to act like Jaws, this microcosm for all the Grizzlies' problems, but I just think they have a serious accountability problem on their team, which
Mm-hmm.
is surprising on a team that has featured Steven Adams, because you figure he'd just be pushing everyone up against the wall and into line. But I think they have a problem where everybody's just too buddy, which is basically what you want on a team. But there's this perfect limit, and I think they've surpassed it, right? And
Yeah.
nobody's really there holding anybody accountable other than Steven Adams. But there's only so much he can do as a teammate.
Yeah, like
So
even that night where Ja went to was seen at the club in Denver, like he apparently Steven Adams like met with the team and like said like, hey, like we need to like
yeah,
lock in or whatever, and like basically we can't be messing around doing any funny business. And then sure enough, Ja like a few hours later, you know.
yeah, it's like Jaws, like that. That's the problem, is he's clearly taking this stuff as a bit of a challenge. Like he wants to kind of fight the power a little,
Mm.
and just flashing guns on. And that's the other thing, is like it's important to stress he's done technically nothing wrong. He hasn't hurt anybody. Like obviously these situations can be much more drastic and dire, but it's an image issue.
Mm.
It's clearly an image issue, especially with how prominent social justice narratives and stuff were in the NBA for the last few years. You can tell they've got a serious, just they don't want that type of imagery popping up. And whether that's right or wrong, the bottom line is they just don't want that type of idea being put in their young fans' minds about their budding superstar. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just we went to we went into the weeds on that one, but the bottom line is that he wouldn't be in as much trouble, and the trouble he's even getting into wouldn't be that bad if it wasn't the fact that he's broadcasting it to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for his mental health, as well as KD's mental health, but especially Jaw's mental health, he needs to stay away from basically being online and having a social presence. So
Yeah.
sounds like we agree on that one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so last but not least, we have a bit of a tie here. There's an obvious choice, Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
That one is obvious. There's obvious reasons, but I'm actually gonna lean towards LeBron James. Because Kyrie, even though he says some really stupid stuff, he says some abysmally stupid stuff. He's not a stupid person. What I'm saying is, whatever Kyrie does that's sort of messy and dumb, it's kind of par for the course with Kyrie. Whereas LeBron, I think, is another example of someone who's actually detracting from their legacy with his social media stuff. I think LeBron is obviously one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Is really, even though guys like me, and I think you, because you're a Chicago fan, we're like, yo, he's not passing the. But
right here.
we even as someone who thinks he will never pass it, like he's still here, he's still playing. I'm still very curious to see him push those limits, and I think his social media presence, he's just too much. Talk, this. I'm great, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I want to see. That was the beauty of Michael Jordan, right? The only cockiness you really heard out of Michael Jordan was like, oh, yeah. He's like, if I was still playing today, I would dominate. Like, he thought highly of himself, but he would never be sitting there saying, basically the type of stuff LeBron is saying about declaring himself as so great on social media. It's a funny what if, because what if social media was around in the age of Jordan? But the thing is, even though times were different back then, there were still sound bites, there were still dailies, there were still little interview sound bites and stuff. And Jordan wasn't punching off any of the stuff that you see LeBron doing pretty much daily on Twitter.
Yeah.
I think LeBron needs to go back to, what was he like, playoff LeBron? Does he still do that in the playoffs? Or he like shut?
Yeah, it was like zero dark 30 mode, I think is what it was.
Even that, like, I wish. Just, I get it. I'm kind of piling on, but I wish he wouldn't announce it, right? I wish he just said that one time, maybe once in the past, if people asked,
Yeah.
More like Kawhi, put it that way.
Yeah, like I didn't even know about that personally until like I feel like a couple years ago, like really, and I mean mainly because I didn't follow his like Twitter or anything like that until then. But ever since then, it's almost been like he's never done it. You know what I mean? So it's just like it's almost, and that's kind of I feel like the whole thing with LeBron in general in this discussion is that I feel like he's always contradicted himself, and whether that be like on social media or just like feeding the media. Like even when he did that like the press conference with the Heat and he's like not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. Like you're just feeding the media, more ammo. So then when you don't get more than 2 and you like they're going to say not 3, 4, 5 or anything like that, and it's just going to look worse on you. And then I think I was also like one that he did tweet before, not this past season, but like this going on really, but the season before, the first season that Westbrook was on the Lakers, and he put out that big tweet that went viral. I'm sure, I know you're not big on Twitter, but like I'm sure you've probably seen it, where he's like, keep talking about my squad, our personnel, like, and he's like, do me one favor, please, like just keep the same energy when it all begins. And then it was probably the most disappointing season from a team success perspective of his career. And it's just like these things that like he'll continue to say and he'll continue to push out, like, about his, like you said, this all goes back to really his legacy. And I think his legacy would even be maybe stronger if he didn't have to say it, because you hear the greats like Michael Jordan, even though I think Michael Jordan's the GOAT, he'll never say that he's the GOAT. Even though he's more confident in himself than a lot of other people, he's never said that he's the GOAT. And I'm pretty sure Kobe Bryant's never said he's the GOAT. And there's like a lot of other guys that are like within that realm that don't say it. But it just feels like LeBron, similar to Durant. And that's kind of like what I was saying, like leaning toward people that do a similar thing. Like he's kind of been more on that wave lately. And I just think for his sake, it would be better to like not. And I guess like just to touch quickly on like Kyrie though, like I feel like he's like, he's always going to put like questionable things out there. Like I think he put that one tweet out earlier this past season that got him suspended like 10 games or something like that, about like the film or whatever. Yeah. So like that's already just something, but I think like part of it too, and whether he also feeds the media much like LeBron in a sense, and also like it's just his is more like word of mouth, which you could argue it's probably even worse because like we know, like you've said this, like we can't manipulate your words that we hear you say. You know, like maybe you can misinterpret a tweet, you can misinterpret a text. It's easy to do that because like you can't tell the tone of a text or something like that or a tweet. But when we hear you say it, like it's a completely different story. And I know like last year or whatever when they lost to the Celtics in the first round, and he went on Twitch and he started like live streaming 2K, and he was like basically going on a rant about like his whole career and stuff like that. Like that's just not a good look either. So I think for the sake of this, like they both need to, just ease up. I guess like with the social media. I don't know if at least they probably can still keep it, but maybe not like the safety levels for their own sake as in jeopardy as like like we talked about. But I think they could probably benefit more if they tweeted and stuff differently.
LeBron would be the perfect example of like it's really about like tone back what he's doing on it, because a guy like him, the mogul he is, he obviously can't be like LeBron needs to get rid of his social media. Oh, I mean, it's not the dumbest idea. You look at guys like Kawhi. I mean, it's not like they have as much money as LeBron, but it's not like they're doing bad.
Jokic too.
Yeah, like it's not like any of these guys are doing bad. But like Kyrie's biggest problem is he I say the only thing worse than being stupid is being smart, but thinking you're really smart, because he just constantly thinks he's the smartest person. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the problem. When he had that controversial tweet, obviously the reporters are going to come out and ask you that, they're going to ask you that obvious question. And as tempting as it is to be like, oh, screw you, buddy. Like, why? But like, you know what you say, Kyrie? You say no. You say absolutely not. No. You say I made a mistake. I didn't know. You just say, you give the simple answer. He's constantly looking for endless opportunity to show like, well, I really know what's up. Y'all know, like I describe Kyrie as this guy who leaves a path of destruction in his wake everywhere he goes. Then when people ask him about it, he acts like he's just been minding his own business, and they're being so you know what I mean? Yeah. He just causes all these never-ending problems. He just causes a problem everywhere he goes. And when people kind of want to confront him about it, he's just like, oh, you're just looking to stir up drama. I wasn't looking to stir up drama with all the crap I've been. I was hoping to just kind of get away with it quietly. You know what I mean? It's yeah. Just, Kyrie I describe as someone. I think he does have a good heart. But I think he's extremely selfish, and I think he's what's the last thing I was gonna say? He thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and he needs to completely ditch that. He needs to be humbled.
Yeah, bit, I think like for me, like I usually for me personally, this might just be a me thing, not everybody, but I don't know. I like it when it's like you show it more than like you just say it. Because then that just like actions speak louder than words, and that's always going to be true. I mean, like even this guy right here, he doesn't really use social media. Really, both of them don't. Like Jordan or Derrick Rose, and they're two of my favorite players ever. Now I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, but at the same time, it's like I admire them and I respect them, because a lot of the times, like they'll say stuff, they'll go out and they'll do it. Like when MJ takes things personally, or like when Derrick Rose said like, "Why can't I be league MVP?" And then he goes out and he's league MVP. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I just think like if maybe like LeBron and even like I think LeBron and Durant are really similar in this case. Like if they both maybe adopted that mentality, it could help them a lot. And then like Kyrie just needs to be more careful for me.
Yeah. I think we could sum this video up by saying we just discussed basically four players who social media is currently detracting from their greatness.
Yeah.
They need to ditch it or revamp how they want to present themselves on social media. So I think we pretty much covered that one. Any last words?
No, I mean, hopefully, I don't know if these guys will be watching, but hopefully at least one of them is, and maybe they can get the message out to the others.
I was gonna say like maybe the message is think before you tweet, or I like to say do the math before you walk the path. That's especially in the internet, because the internet is forever. All right, guys, thanks for joining us for that chat. We'll move on to another one. This is Gavin with NBA Real Talk signing out. Super Mario Hoops 24, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Nice. All right.
What's the time on that one?